In the small coastal town of Willow Bay, where the salty breeze mingled with the scent of wildflowers, there was a quaint bookshop called The Turning Page. Its owner, Eliza Moreau, had a peculiar charm. She spoke softly, as if every word carried the weight of a poem, and her laughter was the kind that made you feel like the sun had just peeked out from behind the clouds. Eliza's days were predictable. Mornings were spent dusting shelves, afternoons arranging book displays, and evenings flipping through worn-out pages of her favorite classics. She liked it that way, steady, safe, and filled with the gentle company of words. But life, as it often does, had other plans. One stormy autumn evening, just as Eliza was locking up the shop, a figure dashed in, drenched from head to toe. His dark hair clung to his forehead, and water dripped from his jacket onto the wooden floor. He carried a notebook, its pages damp and curling at the edges. "I'm sorry," he gasped, catching his breath. I didn't know where else to go." Eliza blinked at him, puzzled. "It's a bookshop, not an inn." The man cracked a sheepish smile. "I know. I just needed a place to think." Something about his earnestness melted her initial irritation. She nodded toward the old armchair by the window. "Sit. I'll get you a towel." As the storm raged outside, the stranger introduced himself as Lucas Brennan, a travel journalist who had come to Willow Bay in search of inspiration. His notebook, he confessed, held snippets of stories and half-finished thoughts that he couldn't quite piece together. Over the next hour, as Lucas dried off and the rain drummed against the windows, they talked. Lucas told tales of far-off places, markets in Morocco, snowy peaks in Switzerland, and sunsets in Santorini. Eliza listened, captivated, her world of books suddenly feeling small in comparison. "You've seen so much," she murmured, her fingers tracing the spine of a novel. "And yet you ended up here. Why?" Lucas hesitated, his gaze dropping to his notebook. "Because every story I've written feels incomplete. Like I'm missing something or someone." The words hung between them, heavier than the storm outside. Days turned into weeks, and Lucas became a regular at the Turning Page. He claimed the armchair as his own, scribbling furiously in his notebook while Eliza worked. They shared coffee, laughter, and, eventually, pieces of themselves they'd never shared with anyone else. Eliza told him about the heartbreak that had left her wary of the world beyond Willow Bay. Lucas admitted he was running, not just from deadlines but from the fear of not being enough. One crisp winter evening, as they walked along the moonlit shore, Lucas stopped abruptly. He turned to Eliza, his eyes searching hers. "I've written 1,000 stories," he said, his voice trembling. "But you're the one I want to live." Eliza's breath caught. The walls she'd built around her heart wavered, but she was still afraid. "And what if this is just another chapter for you? What if you leave?" Lucas reached for her hand, his grip warm and steady. "Then I'll write you into every story I tell. But I'm not planning on going anywhere, Eliza. Not without you." In that moment, under a canopy of stars, Eliza realized that while books had been her escape, Lucas was her adventure. And so, they began their story, not in ink, but in the way they laughed, fought, and loved. It wasn't always perfect, but it was theirs, written one imperfect, beautiful day at a time.